This presentation, titled Integrating Management Systems, Integrating the Auditing Process, comes to us from Nancy Nouaimeh. Nancy is an accomplished chartered business excellence and total quality management professional with more than 18 years of experience and a proven record of significant achievements. She holds master's degrees in TQM and agronomic sciences and bioengineering. In her current job as Assistant Vice President, Quality, Safety, and Performance Excellence at a leading food services management company in Dubai, Nancy leads improvement projects through innovative and integrated approaches. She's an expert in ISO standards and auditing, ISO 22000, ISO 9001, ISO 14001, and ISO 45001. She's also a subject matter expert, senior assessor, and judge for National Excellence, Innovation, and Quality Professional Awards. And with that, take it away, Nancy.
Michael, thank you very much for this introduction. Good day, everyone. It's my pleasure to be with you here today talking about integrating the auditing process for integrated management system. And I would like to thank Exemplar Global and the Online Auditor Expo for this opportunity. So let's start. So before we start, I just wanted to highlight something, which is the simplicity of what I'm going to be talking about in a way, because it's very important, as Einstein said, to keep things simple, but not not too simpler also. So today I'm going to walk you through certain things that I practice in the company where I work, Abalanco. We are a food service management company, and we focus on different standards to be able to meet our clients' requirements. So I'm going to walk you through that, and we're going to start talking about the benefits first of the integrated management systems, which I believe many of you would have experienced those. We're going to talk a little bit about the Annex SL, the common structure, and how did this really help the integration of systems from a company's perspective. And we're going to talk a little bit about the auditing process of the integrated management system. Definitely, we cannot be talking about audits in the pandemic, and since 2020, when we started really witnessing a change in our practices, without talking about remote audits. This will be the last point we're going to be covering today. Through this 30 minutes presentation, I'm going to walk you through all this with some practical examples and some tips we've learned from the experience we had in the past years. So what's an integrated management system? It's a single management system that helps us manage multiple aspects of organizational performance to meet the requirements of more than one management standards and specification. So if you're working in a company where you start looking at different standards because you need to improve your current practices, you want to improve your performance, and you want to meet different requirements related to your products and services and processes you have in place, then you start thinking about integrated management systems. And this depends on the level of integration you want to have within your organization and within your systems. So let's keep this in mind moving forward. So when companies start looking at the integration of management systems, we start looking at that when we have several standards and we want to really have one set of policies and procedures in place. I spoke about keeping things simple. So when we start talking about different standards, having all of these procedures and policies in place makes things very complicated. And we can end up having hundreds of documents, hundreds of policies and procedures to manage 2 or 3 systems. So we start looking at integrating the management systems in place when we have those requirements of having 2 or more management system, certification for 2 or more external standards. When we think about incorporating external, internal requirements into the business we're managing, and especially if we are a business organization that manages multiple sites or locations, definitely a need of integration is required to maintain standardization. One of the other scenarios would be if we're looking at having one audit, like for more than one system at a time. So rather than having to audit your environmental management system separately, or your occupational health system and then your quality management system, if you're looking at having one audit that covers all of these systems, you really definitely need to have a strong management system in place that integrates all of these standards. But for me, one of the most important things that an organization can think of when they are starting their integration journey is the need to define roles, responsibilities, and accountabilities to achieve common objectives needed for the organization to keep moving in the future and to keep remaining competitive in the market. So defining roles, responsibilities without overlapping, having everybody having clear accountability on what are the expectations from everyone is really a very good cause for integrated management system. Now let's move on a little bit to the benefits, and I think many of you have encountered or have noticed these benefits while working with different systems in an organization. If you want to integrate systems, definitely you'll have quicker development time if you work on all systems together rather than looking at every system separately. And this I'll explain to you a little bit later in the presentation when we start looking at those elements of integration, and you'll understand why that development becomes quicker when we talk about integrating certain key areas of the management standards. When we talk about reduced time, when we talk about reduced effort, we definitely look at reduced costs internally with the team we're working with, and definitely a reduced cost at the certification level when the third-party certification, because we're going to reduce a little bit the effort on the audit mandate. One of the important things, I think, especially with the change of the management system, the new NXSL and the focus on the risk-based approach in the management systems, that help us really look at the risk from a wider perspective, rather than just focusing on different elements, the small elements we used to focus on separately. We look at the risk from enterprise-wide risk, and we look at how we can reduce that at a high level, and which definitely will impact profitability and efficiency. So having a good integrated management system in place help us look at all the risks and mitigate those risks for the benefit of the company and the business. Create consistency and coordinated activities between all levels. And I like the statement because one of the things I think when we try to make things put different standards in place, we tend to lose the focus sometimes of people because they start focusing on different things. So definitely they need a new direction. They need to make sure that they understand their roles and they understand their activities and how these should be coordinated together. And once that level of coordination is achieved in an integrated management system, it helps us achieve consistency from different tasks that the team is doing, different projects, especially when we talk about the quality management system and our products and the outcome and the services we provide to customers and to clients. Harmonize and optimize workplace practices. This comes from coordinated activities. It comes from everybody knowing their roles, knowing their accountabilities, and because we take it to a certain level of details that helps people understand how they need to do things, what they need to do, and how things, the interaction between different teams is happening in the workplace. And this really takes it to a different level of harmonization, optimization. And definitely this is where we can see an impact on the culture excellence of the organization. In our company, we had tested our culture excellence. We did the 3 years assessment. And we focused on first year on food safety, second year we focused on food safety quality, the third year we focused on food safety quality and health and safety. And we definitely saw a lot of improvement, a lot of positive impact from having an integrated management system on all of these cultures we had in place. Because when we are a food company, we always talk about food safety as #1 priority. So quality and health and safety struggled a little bit initially. But once we started having this integration and we started talking about the 3 standards and started talking about the need to meet the client requirements and take care of our employees and make sure that they are safe in the workplace, I think having an integrated management system helped us have a good culture, a positive culture in place. And that really was demonstrated with the results we had in our assessment, where we had around 82% score, which is great for and was much higher than the industry average. So the integrated management systems helps really harmonization, optimization, coordination, consistency, and standardization within an organization. And once we lay them in, you put everything on a paper and you look, I'll show you some examples later on. And you look at the responsibilities and relationships, especially when we're talking about different expertise, different departments. In our company, we had food safety, quality was handling health and safety. We had the operation side. We have 120 different sites. We have client requirements, different from one to another, different levels of requirements were completely different sometimes based on the industry we're serving. So it was really important for us to look at those conflicts, and having an integrated management system on a paper and having a flow chart that tells us all the steps in our process and who's responsible and the owner of every process, that really helped us look at the overlapping and make sure that we have no conflicts anymore in what we're doing. It helps focus the organization on the achievement of business goals. And this is very important. Any department, any standard in place, any management system finally needs to serve the goal of helping the organization achieve its goals, its business goals. And having an integrated management system gives clarity and gives a direction to everyone towards the same goals set by the organization. So whether you are a food safety department, quality department, or any production department, that gives you a certain sense of direction to follow and helps the organization achieve its business goals. One of the, I think, which was very common to, and everybody knows it, that having an integrated management system, if it's well designed and if it's made in a simple way, helps to have an easier documentation system in place and helps maintain it in a better way. So from all this, I think one of the major things, major benefit from integrated management system is definitely a support to the continuous improvement process of an organization. It helps us become more effective. It helps us identify collectively the things that needs to be tackled and put the right resources to make sure that we are tackling things which are impactful for the organization, rather than having every department setting their own improvements separately. And then we end up having sometimes maybe conflicts because of that. So these are really the benefits of integrated management system. I'm going to move on a little bit now to the high level common structure before I start really talking about how did we integrate and how can integration happen when we're talking about different standards. So most of you, definitely are familiar with the structure, the NXSL, the new structure for all the standards, the newest versions of the standards, the ISO standards. So the 1, 2, 3 talks about scope, normative references, terms and conditions. The most important ones for a system are the context of the organization. This is when we look at how, I'm gonna dig deeper a little bit into this in the next slide. So let me just move on quickly on this. We're talking about leadership, planning, support, operation, performance evaluation, and improvement. And you will find these in all the newest standards of the ISO. So today, for the purpose of our presentation today, I'll be taking you through the ISO 9001, QMS, the 22001. We're going to talk about the 45001, and we're going to talk about also the environmental management system, the 14001. So I'm going to show you high-level differences. You see that, you're familiar with the PDCA, which is at the core of the new ISO standards. We're talking about the Plan to Check Act, from planning to support and operation. If you look at the red circles, we're talking about the leadership at the center. We're talking performance evaluation and improvement. And from all that, we can get the output of which we are really looking for in all of these standards. So I'm going to share with you some additional points here which are very important. So when we talk about the context of the organization, we look, and these are similarities between all standards, and this is where the integration happens also. We look at getting input from all what we're doing. So if we're looking at having an input about the different standards in place in one goal, that would be really very helpful to design a good system. We're looking at the internal and external issues, and here, based on the standard, these issues can be different, and we will have certainly some common issues. So having one document that states the internal and external issues, the risks and opportunities for organization is very important to help everybody understand where the risk is and how these can be mitigated by different parties, stakeholders in the organization. So we're talking for the 9001, we're talking about risk-based approach for planning. And when it comes to the result, definitely we're looking at the intended outcome from a customer point of view. We're looking at the organization, how this is going to impact the organization and the client's requirements. And we're looking at it from a quality perspective. So we're looking at enhanced quality performance. And we're looking at fulfilling obligations related to the quality of the product. When we move to the 14001, it's different. We're looking at an environmental management system. We're looking at internal and external issues which are related to that, but also there will be some commonalities between the other standard. With the other standards, we're looking here at, when we talk about risk-based, we're looking at the environmental impact and environmental aspects and impact analysis. So we're looking really at something very specific, which might require a different expertise. But that's one of the things which we're going to be talking about when we talk about the auditor competence. We're looking at an intended outcome from an environmental point of view. We're looking at the requirements, obligations from an environmental point of view, and even the enhanced performance of environmental objectives. So if you look at all the other elements, they are the same. We see differences when we start talking about the core elements of this of the system, which are the environmental elements. So this is again an example showing that integration can happen on all the other clauses except those ones which are related to the technical aspect we're looking at and the specific requirements and obligations. For 14,000, again, we start internal and external issues. 45,000, I'm sorry. So 45,000 looks at the workplace, the health of employees, the safety of employees. So we're looking at the stakeholders, which are employees in this case. But these are also, and if you look at the other management system, you will find elements that are related to that also. So this also falls in one of the areas of integration. We look at risk-based, we look at the risk assessment in terms of hazards in the workplace for employees and how the practices we're having are impacting their health and safety. We look at one specific element, for example, in the 45,001, which is the participation of workers. This is one of the things which will not be maybe integrated as clearly as the other elements because it's really something very specific to the 45,000. We look at the intended outcome, again, fulfillment of compliance obligations and enhanced OHS performance for the specific objectives we put in place for the performance in terms of safety of employees in the workplace. But all the other elements are areas of full integration with other standards. My last example is about 22,001, just to show you where are the areas which are different and the other areas which are really easy to integrate in a management system. So if we look at the 22,001, we have the food safety, it's a food safety management system. It is very specific. Being in the food industry, that's one of the areas which still requires certain different expertise from the other areas we're covering, which are the 45,000, 18,000, sorry, 14,000 and the 9,001, because it looks at the food safety. There's very particular expertise we require from our team, specific training, specific certifications, and also for the auditors who perform the internal audit and external audits. So here the core is really having a hazard analysis, critical control point, looking at the hazards that we can have in our processes and our products, looking at the cross-contamination elements, areas where we can really, we need to prevent to make sure that our food is safe and ready to be eaten safe by our customers. And again, we look at the performance in terms of food safety management systems. So these are the separate areas which we had to design separately when we were designing our integrated management system, but all the other areas we really managed to integrate them in a very good way. So just let me summarize a little bit at the stage where we are. So having an integrated management system, simple one. I just want to give you the example. We started having initially 43 procedures or 45 procedures between our 14,000, 45,000, and the 22,000. When we integrated all of those, we got down to 25 procedures. And we still managed later to add specific ones for food safety, like halal and the food defense procedure. But initially, we managed really to have all the requirements covered in those 25 procedures, where 6 or 7 of them were very specific for food safety. The others were integrated procedures talking about all the other elements of the systems we have in place. So just to summarize, simple doesn't mean not effective. Definitely it means being effective because you're reducing the waste in everything you're doing. You're going back to a place where you make sure that things you're putting in place are easily understandable. It's something which is really easy to operate. Everybody can relate to it, helps auditors and users quickly find information needed. You don't have those 100 different documents which state sometimes the same things in a different way, just to make sure that you're covering everything. So there's a simple way to cover everything in an easy way. Display relevant information and functionality. I think this has really helped us a lot to have an integrated management system where we were able to put on, I don't have examples here to share, but just to show our team that this is relevant to you. You are in food safety, you're doing a task under food safety. This is what you need to do. This is a common task for all these systems. And this is another task, which is very specific, maybe for health and safety champion. And it helped us really make things very visible, and visual to everybody, and help maintain confidentiality, especially when you are really setting a good system for food safety. For example, in our case, it was very important to look at the confidentiality when we deal with customers' requirements. So that really helped us make sure which are the areas we're exposing that and to cover it in a good way. One of the things about simple and effective is really being able to remain flexible enough. I think when ISO standards started, we were seeing rigid systems where this is a requirement, you don't deviate from it, you just do this and you get your certification. Being flexible doesn't mean deviating, it means working in a smart way, working in a way where you know where you can be flexible without jeopardizing your system, because this is what you need to do to make sure that you remain flexible, and you remain that everybody can really meet the requirement. Sometimes you need certain flexibility to meet the requirement without jeopardizing that compliance part. And having a good system in place which is well designed, and where the interactions are known, where people know exactly what their impact, what there are consequences of what they're doing on other elements of the integrated system, this really helps us maintain certain flexibility. And this is very important for continuous improvement. It's no violation, no non-compliance at all. It's just making sure that people who are managing, especially the process owners, especially the people who are really managing this whole system, understand how they can be flexible. And that really, integration helps really that part. It's just very high level of the integrated approach. And where does it happen? It happens at the policies and objectives. It happens at the support and responsibilities at the high level, and then cascading it down for people. We have in our company PICs who are person in charge, who takes care of food safety, and at the same time take care of health and safety of employees, because we train them and such, and we make sure that they are really reporting back on the performance and they are really accountable for it. So this really helps when you have a good system, laid out system. Systems and system processes is very important also to look at that integration. Where is it and where it cannot be? When we talk about technical expertise, definitely it cannot happen like the areas which I showed you. But for other areas, when we talk about leadership, when we talk about management, all of these areas can be management reviews, all these areas can be well integrated. Documents management, definitely one of the greatest area to look at integration. Internal audits also. We managed internally to have one team, internal audit team, who looks at all the audits internally in the organization. We have the required expertise. I'm going to be talking a little bit about it in a minute. Management review and continuous improvement, one procedure we have for that. It looks at, the management review looks at all the elements we need to cover. And even lately, we were managed to add the worker welfare to it, because it's required from from certain of our clients, and that integrated very well, which is a completely separate things, separate elements we're having there, but they integrate very well with whatever we have in place. So this is just high level document that tells the stakeholder, interested parties, and needs and expectations. We had color coding to look at all the requirements when it comes to EMS, OHS, the interested parties, their expectations. Another level of integration is at the operations, risk and opportunities, internal and external issues register, where you could see in the column here, you could see here that we have the food safety, OHS, environment, and we looked at all of these integrations at that level, where everything is laid down in a document which is 5-6 pages with the control measures, and we were able, you see the roles and responsibilities, so we can see everybody's impact on the system we have in place. Internal audit checklist, it's also very detailed. It talks about the clauses. It's very important for an auditor when he audits an organization to be able to go back, right, and trace it to the audit clauses of the management system that's being audited. And this is a way which we facilitated for our auditors internally and even the external auditors, telling them these are the clauses we have and this is how it's impacting. I mean, this is where you can see the application in our departments or with different people. And this is very helpful for all the auditors. So it's really detailed. You see departments, you need even auditors. When we have lead auditor, when we do audits, we go to that extent of details to look internally about the areas of integration and the non-integration. So this is very important document for us, which we developed also to make sure that everything is made clear for everybody and put in a simple way. Now, just for auditing an integrated management system, let me take you through some of the requirements or the considerations. Like I spoke earlier, the level of integration depends on what you want to integrate. Full integration, that's the best. Some companies decide maybe to go for different areas of integration, not necessarily 100% integration of management systems. That's also maybe not required or maybe not feasible in certain cases when we talk about technical standards. But if you talk about the ones which I shared with you, a full integration happened except for the core, which we had separate procedures. Still, we looked at it all together as an integrated with an integrated look and integrated approach. So document management, that's one of their levels of integration. Risk and opportunity management, the way I explained, I mean, to show you the Excel, it's really very important because you manage to cover all the risks, even not directly maybe related to the management systems, by having that full exercise and looking at the entire organization. The internal audits are very important. I'm going to talk quickly about those. management reviews, the monitoring is very important, and the control of non-conformance are one other areas of integration. From an auditing perspective, you need to look at the monitoring that the organization is having in place, whether that's effective. You need to look at how they are controlling the non-conformance for all of these standards. While maybe you will have an integrated system, the way they respond to all of these non-conformance could be different. So this is one of the elements that an auditor needs to keep an eye on when he looks at the control of non-conformance in an integrated management system, monitoring control of non-conformance. When we do the management reviews, we need to make sure that anything that's impacted any of the standards has been taken into consideration in the management review. Continuous improvement also, when we talk about that, we should make sure that it's really covering the entire, all the standards covered under the integrated management system. So when you are an auditor auditing an integrated management system, you will have a team usually auditing integrated management systems. So you need to make sure that all auditors are capturing. They will look at these different areas, but they are really capturing across the organization how these are happening and the input in at different stages. Definitely, when we look at auditing an integrated management system from a third-party perspective, even internally, we look at different things when we look at certification, surveillance, and recertification. And when we look at auditing and in terms of recertification, for example, we need to make sure that there was no changes in the integration level at the organization. So we need to look back at all of these elements which you see on the screen here that make sure that nothing has changed in the integration of the management system when you're doing surveillance and recertification. Otherwise, definitely you need to have a different way of auditing that integrated management system and look at how they address these changes in the new integration and in the integration and the management system they have in place. The three things which I would like to share with you at this level for auditing, which are really very critical when we talk about the integrated management system, is the audit plan. And when we design an audit plan and we look at how many mandates we need for an audit, there are certain things that maybe help us to reduce a little bit the mandates. Other things might help us, might require us that we increase the number of mandates and the effort we put into audit. The ones that help us reduce, definitely the way the system is integrated, the level of integration, whether it's really complete integration, partial integration, and it helps us if really to make, if the company has designed the system in a simple way, clear way, where everything is really made visually understandable, comprehensive, and that helps people to really find out the information in a good way. So that's what goes back to simple yet effective. And factors for increase, which we could look at in terms of complexity. If you're adding a lot of standards, technical standards, you might increase the complexity of your audit program, of your audit process. So these things will help identify how many mandates are required. And usually when we look at reduction, because we integrated management system, we can go up to 20% of reduction effort in an audit plan. And this is very important. Reduction really is happens when a good integration is in place. Audit team, very important to look at the competence of the team. In our case, we had food safety, we had health and safety, quality. We had to look at food safety team expertise and their knowledge in microbiology and their knowledge in food technology and all of these things to be able to have a competent team that looks at these. In the same time, making sure that we don't have conflicts within the team because we had to have independent auditors. You need to look at the individual people within a team. You need to look at the whole team. You need to make sure that you cover the entire expertise you need, especially internally. We might miss certain areas when we talk about quality control or when we talk about maintenance or when we talk about procurement. It's very important to have an audit team who understands all of these processes. Team leader has to be competent at least in one of the audited standards and specifications. It's very important that the team leader knows very well one of the standards that you are auditing, so he can lead this whole process, especially when we're talking about the areas which will be covered by the team leader. Definitely when we talk about integrated management system, you cannot have an audit plan without really planning together with the team because there are different areas to look at. We followed the same approach as an external third-party auditor with a mandatory planning session internally, looking at all these areas. And our plan, I mean, the Excel sheet which I've shared with you, which has all the clauses and has all the departments, helped us really have a good planning session. So we looked sometimes, depends on the audit, we look at areas which are critical for us at a certain moment. We look at certain processes, making sure that the entire year we covered everything. So planning session is really very important. The lead auditor, he really needs to look at the high level areas for integration. He looks at the leadership, at the planning, how the company is giving the resources. So he looks at the continuous improvement and the management review part. So he looks at all of these areas which are common to the entire integrated management system, and these are areas which are really impacted by the commitment of the management, by the context, the well-designed context of the organization, defined context of the organization, and by knowing who are the interested parties, what are the risks and opportunities. So he looks at this whole thing from a high level, making sure that all the systems are really well connected, well covered in these areas, and that the company have objectives and right objectives, and they are achieving the outcome and having good performance. Audit findings and report traceable to the applicable standards. This is very important when we talk about an audit process of integrated management system. Any finding has to be stated based on the standard which is applicable to, for organization to be able to go and look at the root cause and find good corrective actions for that. Non-conform is applicable to one, common requirement is applicable to the entire AMS. And that's something everybody needs to understand, that if you have one area for once, which is where you have a non-conformance to one management standard, which is an integrated area, then this is rolled down to the other standards. For recertification, like I explained earlier, there's no changes in integration. It's very important for the audit process to understand if there has been changes and to really look at these changes in case we're recertifying the integrated management system. So the remote auditing, we come here to the last part of this presentation, and I think the remote auditing, we had to experience few remote audits this year and last year, and our experience was very positive. In fact, it was due to two main things: readiness of the auditee and readiness of the auditor. And I think it's to make that work, both has to be really working, understanding that the impact they have on each other performance during the audit, and understand that it's really a joint effort to make this happen. Remote audits, I think we should not get into the trap that it's less efficient audit than others. Our experience demonstrated the contrary. It's very efficient, especially when our auditor was really very detailed. But what helped is having good virtual management in place. From an auditee point of view, having the right technical support to make sure that things go smoothly, have a team which is trained, which is ready, understand that this is not to waste time. This is not just to, we're not looking really at having a negative impact on the audit itself, so we needed to make sure that productivity is maintained. So it was really the training of the staff, which was really very, very critical. Having our remote audits helped, especially when we had the possibility to record evidences or to make things ready and scan things and make them ready. It required maybe more preparation from an auditee point of view, but it was very smooth when these things were in place. One thing which unfortunately at this point, we couldn't really do much about it is the use of technology, but we're something that every organization can look for in the future, the smart glasses, the QR codes. Our auditor was very, the auditor we had so far, they were very, they had very good cameras. They went, I'm gonna go to the next part. They went back every time they saw something that needs to be really looked at in more detail. So they had good cameras going back under the tables, behind the chairs, looking at the people, talking to people, interviewing people. It was really a great experience, in fact. From the auditor, I think one of the things which is very important is the communication part. Being behind the screen, and sometimes maybe if there are delays, frustration can happen. It's very important from an auditor, and this is one of the challenges of the auditors, is to remain approachable and understanding of the things happening, and taking things in an objective way. I think this is really very critical to the success of a remote audit. Having interaction with people directly, asking them questions, getting answers, is different when you're talking behind the screen. And that's one of the things I think that makes the success of the audit, is if the auditor is aware and is conscious enough that there are changes when you are doing a remote audit compared to what you do regularly. It doesn't mean the company is trying to hide anything, or the company is, or the team is doing less good work. It's just like this is a virtual, this is a reality, and virtual is not always easy. Efficiency and attention to details. I think this is really goes back to also the training of the auditor, how efficient they are, how good they are in managing the virtual meetings, managing virtual connectivities, and all of these things, because it depends on them to ask and make sure and stay on track. It's very important to make sure that they got all the evidences, remain on track, and goes back also to the way they their competence in really checking evidences quickly and making sure that they capture all the evidences. One of the things which I think the remote auditing would require auditor is to be a little bit more creative in the way they use things, they use tools, in the way they want to engage with people. Something they're not able to get it, they need to find a way to get it in a good way without really jeopardizing the entire audit. So these are skills I think auditor will develop. At the same time, like auditee has to understand how much important is it to be ready for a virtual audit. Even in our like food business, it was really, I think, some very basic elements were checked. And this was really good because the auditor was really very much I mean, he was ready, or she was ready. I think we had different auditors, and they were ready for that task. And this goes back to how much they spent time getting ready for it. Just the last slide, which I want to really emphasize on, and I go back to simple yet effective. If you are an auditor, I think for integrated management systems, the design of the audit is really critical. If the system itself is not well designed, it can be something that hinders the success of audits. It depends on the organization. It depends on the expertise they have in place. It depends on the effort and the time they spend designing good management systems. It's not really complicated. We've been through that exercise for several standards. It's just really spending enough time on the details to understand what is really integrated and what's not integrated, what you need to cover, where you need to cover that, and what are the level of documents you need to have in place. You need to go back to down to the level of the work instruction if you want to really do it right. And you need to put good legends, you need to explain, you need to put roles and responsibilities maybe on different documents to make sure. But the most important, I think, is to set everything right top down. You need at the department head level work together, lay down a good system that really tells what are the responsibilities. And I think you start from a good organizational chart, good processes, process owners, and all of these things that you put at a high level. Team engagement is critical for setting the systems and at the same time for facilitating a good audit for integrated management systems. If the team is not engaged, I don't think that would really happen. Readiness at all levels. Good communication. It's more important in the virtual to have a really good communication, because communication can across the screen is not always the best, but I think it's very important to understand that effort needs to be put there, and always look at the performance of your systems, the performance of the team, and that's a very good indicator if you are on the right track, whether you're doing an internal audit and you want to really provide value to the organization, or whether you are a team setting an integrated management system. So the results of all these exercises are the one to tell whether we are on the right track or not. And definitely the challenges of integrated management system, auditing integrated management system, is to have the right team in place, is to have the right competence. For our case, for example, food safety was always a separate internal auditor and external auditor because they needed specific expertise. But when it comes to all the other elements, we developed an internal team who can really manage the system in the right way, have a good internal audits, good findings, and help us drive continuous improvement. With this, I would like to thank you for watching. I do hope that this presentation added value to your knowledge on auditing integrated management system and what are the integrated management system and how to do a good integration. And please don't forget to purchase your CPD certificate. And I would like to thank again Exemplar Global and the Online Auditor Expo for this opportunity. So thank you very much, and have a good day.
Oh, thank you, Nancy Nouaimeh, for your perspective on integrated management systems. And that concludes this presentation.